Hello class and welcome to another video lesson. Today we are on 6.7 and this lesson is about graphing quadratic inequalities. So on this one, in my opinion, this lesson involves three main skills. One of them is completing the square. And you guys already know how to do that, so that's great. So we're going to just get more practice on that today. Another skill is graphing quadratics. Quadratics. Which are parabolas. And good news again, you guys already know how to do that. So skill number 3 that is going to be involved in this lesson is going to be graphing inequalities. And guess what, class? You already know how to do this. So we really, this lesson is just kind of combining all three of these into one lesson. So I don't think it should be too difficult. Let's just review about graphing inequalities. Inequalities are obviously not equal. They are either less than or greater than, or less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. So if we use less than or greater than, we connect our parabolas with dotted lines. If it's less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, we connect our parabolas with solid lines. Or I guess not lines, but you know, our U-shaped parabola type shapes. Another review principle that we should cover, if it's greater than or equal to, you shade above the parabola. So if it looks like this, you shade everything in here. Or if it's a parabola that goes down, then you're going to shade everything in here. It's always everything above the parabola. And so then, contrary, in the exact opposite way, if it's less than and equal to, with a parabola, you would shade everything below the U shape, so everything in here. Or if it was like this, you would shade everything underneath. So that's a little review. And that, if you know how to do steps 1, step 2, and step 3, you really got this lesson made. So let's just practice going through these 4 problems relatively quickly, because I think we already know how to do all this stuff. Let's first complete the square. So 7, we're going to get you over here, because once we get the x squared and the x on the same side all by itself, we can complete the square. So now we have y plus 7 is greater than a negative x squared minus 6x. Now in order to complete the square, I have to get a positive 1 in front of my x squared. I don't have that, so I have to factor out a negative 1. So negative 1 times the quantity x squared plus 6x now, because I factored out a negative 1 plus a blank. And then we have y plus 7 plus a blank is greater than that. So now what goes in the blank? Divide it by 2 and square it. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. But I'm actually adding a negative 9, remember, because I have to multiply it by the negative 1. I have to distribute that negative 1. So now I have y minus 2 is greater than a negative 1 times the quantity x plus 3 quantity squared. And then I have to add that 2. So y is greater than a negative x plus 3 quantity squared plus 2. So now I'm in vertex form, and vertex form is much more efficient to graph. That's why I chose to graph this one in vertex form. And I would recommend you to do the same, because it is just much quicker to do it. So my vertex is at HK. So my vertex is at a negative 3, positive 2. Negative 3, positive 2. I know that my axis of symmetry is x equals the x coordinate. So my axis of symmetry is x equals a negative 3. So I'll draw that in. There's my axis of symmetry. And then what I also need is I also need 4 other points. 2 points to the right of the axis of symmetry and 2 points to the left of the axis of symmetry. Now, the 2 points to the right of the axis of symmetry, I'm going to use these patterns for A. Because my A value is a -1, my A value is a -1, I'm going to use this, except instead of going up 1, right 1, I'm going to go down 1, right 1. So from my vertex, which was right here, down 1, right 1, down 1, 2, 3, right 1. And then parabolas are always symmetrical, so same thing on the other side. Now I'm going to connect all 5 of these dots, and how am I going to do it? It's greater than. It's not greater than or equal to. So because it's greater than, I'm going to connect them with a dotted line. So something that looks like that. Class, I can kind of see how you might get confused with the dotted line for the inequality and for the dotted line of the axis of symmetry. On this lesson, if you don't want to write this axis of symmetry, this line x equals a -3, you don't have to on this one. Okay? I would like to see it on the actual equality parabolas, but on the inequalities, if you don't want to put this axis of symmetry in there, if it would confuse you, you don't have to do that. So, last thing we have to do is we have to do our appropriate shading. Because it is greater than, we shade everything above the parabola. So I just start at the vertex, I say, well, I got to shade everything above the parabola, so I got to shade everything here, and then obviously I'm just going to stay outside of my dotted parabola. So it's going to be everything all right in here. So, there's a lot of things that I expect from you, but nothing is all that difficult. You already know how to complete the square, that's this whole step. You already know how to graph a parabola, that is this step. And you already know how to shade and appropriately label inequalities. So all 3 of those mixed together, that is this lesson. Let's try problem number 2. You can already see we don't have a C value right here. So we're actually ready to rock. We're ready to complete the square. Y is less than or equal to x squared. Oops. I should have said y plus a blank. Sorry about that, class. Y plus a blank is less than or equal to x squared plus 4x plus a blank. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So in the blank we got 4. If we add 4 to the right, we got to add 4 to the left. So I have y plus 4. That's less than or equal to the quantity x plus 2 squared. X squared plus 4x plus 4. This trinomial factors down into x plus 2 times x plus 2, or x plus 2 quantity squared. And then I have to subtract 4 to put it into vertex form. So y is less than or equal to x plus 2 quantity squared. Subtract 4 from that. So my vertex is at the point -2, -4 of hk. And my axis of symmetry is x equals the x coordinate, which is x equals a -2. So -2, -4. There's my vertex. Here's my axis of symmetry. My A value is a +1. So from my vertex, I'm going to go up 1, right 1, up 3, right 1, up 1, left 1, up 3, left 1. How am I going to connect all 5 of these points? It is less than or equal to. So because it's also equal to, less than or equal to, it's going to be a solid line that is going to connect all 5 of these. And then we have to use our appropriate shading. On this particular one, because it is less than, I'm going to shade everything below the parabola. So I'm going to shade, starting at my vertex, I'm just going to go below, and then I'm just going to follow this parabola. I'm going to shade all of this. Likewise on this side. All right, problem number 3. Y is greater than 2x squared minus 4x plus 2. Let's get this 2 off to the left. So now we have y plus 2 is greater than. We'll factor the 2 out of this part right away. I hope that's okay. That's going to combine these 2 steps. So 2 times the quantity x squared minus 2x plus a blank. I'm going to end up having a blank on the left side as well, so y plus 2 plus a blank. All right, in the blank, I have to take b and divide it by 2 and square it. So negative 2 divided by 2 is a negative 1. A negative 1 squared is a positive 1. So if I add 1 to the right, I have to add 2 to the left, right? Because it's 2 multiplied by this 1. So if I add 1 to the right, I'm actually adding 2 to the right. If I add 2 to the right, I have to add this 2 to the left. So now I have y plus 4 on the left. That's greater than 2 times the quantity x minus 1 quantity squared. Remember, the sign is the same as the sign in front of b. And then the second term in the binomial is b divided by 2. So we get 2 times the quantity x minus 1. And then to put it into vertex form, we have to subtract that 4 off from the left. So we have y is greater than 2 times the quantity x minus 1 quantity squared, subtract 4. So my vertex is at hk, positive 1, negative 4. My axis of symmetry is the x equals 1 line. So let's put those two on there. 1, negative 4. And here's your axis of symmetry, x equals 1. This time my a value is 2. So if I know it's positive, I know that the parabola is going to be going up. And if it's 2, I'm going to go up 2 right 1, and then up 6 right 1. Same thing on the left side. Up 2 left 1, up 6 left 1. Next question, how am I going to connect these dots? Is it going to be a solid line, or is it going to be a dotted line? Because it's just greater than, I know that it's going to be a dotted line that connects these. And now I have to use the appropriate shading. And what is the appropriate shading? If it's greater than, it's going to be everything inside my parabola, or everything above my vertex as I go up, and then I just stay inside my boundaries. So my shading is everything in here. And let's just review what this shading actually means. I could pick any one of these points in the shading. It doesn't matter which one it is. I could pick any single one of these, substitute the x and y coordinates back into my original equation, and it makes a true statement. The left side is going to be greater than the right side. In the same way, I could pick any one of these points out here. It doesn't matter which one of them, as long as it's not shaded. And I can make a false statement if I put that point in here. So that's always a check that you could always use if you wanted to double check yourself as you go through this. All right, number 4, why don't you guys try this one on your own? Make sure you distribute this negative 4. Pull that out first. But why don't you guys try this one on your own, and then double check your work with mine. Unpausing the video, you got y plus 11 plus a blank. That equals a negative 4 times the quantity x squared minus 4x plus a blank. When you took this 16 and divided it by this negative 4, you now got a negative 4x. That's how you get that. Dividing that negative 4 by 2 is a negative 2, and then squaring it, you should have got a positive 4 right here. So you added 4 to the right, but you actually added a negative 16, didn't you? So you have to add a negative 16 off to the left. So now we have y minus 5, and I shouldn't have said equals here, it's less than or equal to. Y minus 5 is less than or equal to a negative 4 times the quantity x minus 2 quantity squared. And then the last thing you should have done to complete the vertex form of this equation is to add 5. So y is less than or equal to a negative 4 times the quantity x minus 2 quantity squared plus 5. So where's our vertex at? Our vertex is at hk, which is 2, 5. And my axis of symmetry is the line x equals 2. We'll put those two in. 2, 5. And then the axis of symmetry is x equals 2. So Goes right through my vertex. All right, now plotting the other 4 points, the other 2 to the right and 2 to the left of my axis of symmetry, that was a difficult part in this one. I would be curious to see how many people got the patterns for A. I'm sure many of you did, because a lot of you are smart in here, which is great. My A value is a -4, isn't it? So if we have 4 here, we're going to continue with our patterns. If it goes up 1, up 2, up 3, this one's going to be up 4, right 1, and then up 3, up 6, up 9. Hopefully you know that this one would be up 12, right 1. So going with that, if it's now negatives, all of these turn to down. So from my vertex, you should have went down 4, right 1, down 12, right 1. So from the vertex, down 4, right 1, down 12, right 1. And then the same thing on the other side as well. So hopefully you got a parabola that looks a little something like that. And as you know, as we've kind of covered before, the bigger that A value gets, the skinnier your parabola gets. So when you connect these dots, you're going to find that this is a pretty skinny parabola. And how are you going to connect these dots? With a solid line, because it's less than or equal to. So you're going to have a parabola that looks like this, with the appropriate shading of less than or equal to. It's everything underneath the parabola. So starting with the vertex, just go down and stay inside that parabola. So that is the lesson for today, class. It's really a pretty simple lesson, because you've been taught the 3 main properties of how to do this lesson. You've been taught how to graph inequalities, you've been taught how to graph parabolas, and you've been taught how to put these into vertex form by completing the square. So your worksheet, your assignment rather, is going to be a worksheet 6.7. The worksheet is very, very similar to the notes. It's just 4 problems, just like the notes was 4 problems today. So I don't anticipate any problems. However, if there are problems, I would love to answer your questions, so please feel free to ask me.